mention it. There you go. You do them.
All right, well, before I start, the Smedge cruise the Christmas cruise is Friday the 12th of December. The flyers are out in the other room if anyone's interested in going along. I always call it a bit like, going on a Gilligan's Island cruise. 3-hour cruise, you might never come back. So, all right,
Are they horns or antlers?
They're antlers.
All right, take it away, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, Merry Christmas or a Merry Mining Christmas from the Sydney Mining Club. And I was pleased to take up Trevor's offer and talk about gold. So who's bullish on gold? Not many of you. Who's bearish then? The rest of you all bearish? Where's Barry? Is he today? He's usually bullish. So you're bullish, aren't you? Okay, let's get started then. And okay, most of you would have seen this or know about this in any case, that, they say that gold does actually grow on trees, and this was an article from about 12 months ago. But, of course, what we want to find out is if we're going to have gold on our Christmas tree. So that's what we'll be looking at today. And I love this long-term chart, and this is, first of all, we're going to look at the gold price in US dollars, and then we're going to have a look and see what the Aussie dollar's doing to it as well. So when you look at this, great long-term path, but what happened is that in 1975 there was a corrective phase, and then in 1980 there was a corrective phase, which kind of went on for a lot longer. And of course at the moment we're in a similar corrective phase. What we need to work out, is it 1975 again, and is it the Incredible Hulk? Or is it kind of Wonder Woman? As we all know, women take things a lot longer. What I tend to suggest is that it's a bit of both. But what we have seen is that second, and I can only point to one of these things, that second pink dashed line is being threatened and kind of at the moment coming down through that. So if we look at this though, and I know there have been predictions of the gold price through 3,000, when you look at a chart like this, you can see that it's possible, but how long is it going to take to get there? And again, we come back to is it the 1970s or the 1980s again? But what happened, and that line I've just put in there is very similar to that stop-off when I did it in 2011. It hit into that midway barrier and is pulling back from that in the same way as it did in 1975. So it's still very much like that short, sharp, quicker corrective phase that we saw in the 1970s. Now, as we chartists do, we can get certain measurements of how far a move will go. And if we look at that in the 1970s, it gave us that wonderful target where it reached in the 80s. So if it's 1975 again, and we look at that measured move, it tends to, yes, go off into Never Never Land with Peter Pan. But that's a little bit too far out for my way of thinking, and I think we need to come a little bit closer. But even if we look at what happened in the 1980s, there's still a bit of leftover coming through there that allows for some considerable upside in the medium term, probably not in the short term. But just remember that line that I've put in there again, it is going to be restrictive when the gold price does head towards it. So if we're looking at that, that's the 1970s barrier, and God is a long way down to 580, and I'm not sure that we'd never need to come back to that line. But 2500 plus is what we'd be looking at just to reach that midway barrier from the 70s. So again, I've just put in those trends, and that one is being threatened. So is it an icebreaker that line is being threatened? Is it, or does it mean that this corrective phase is far from over and we could see considerably lower prices? Well, if we look at that, we must look at our support going down and our risk parameters. And looking at that, we've got a lesser trend in place there, and 1030 would be something that maybe is not out of the ballpark, and that 960 area would be the backup support. So what's happening is it's being wedged for an outcome soon, and we've got those bands of support showing through there in the lower part of the chart, and the lines of resistance in the yellow, and I'm not sure how clear that's coming up for you, but 12.55 is not too far away, and a break above that line in the short to medium term would suggest that the current little bit of a rally that we're seeing going can continue, and this is in the US dollar price for gold. And then we've got 11.60, 11.75, and I would use maybe 11.30, that recent low, as, you know, a bit of a trigger there on the downside. So they're the parameters that we're looking at in the very short term for the gold price to, you know, maybe tell us if we're going to have a Christmas New Year rally. And then that 1070 close to that 1,000 point. So wedged for an outcome. Now what I've done is converted it to the Australian dollars for those of you that are more interested in Australian dollars, and it's a little bit of a different picture. Again, taking it back as far as we can go. Still a very strong upward path for gold. And again, we have that similar kind of thing to the 1970s and again 1980. But the lines aren't so threatened as they are with the US dollar, and that's obviously the weakness we've seen coming through in the A dollar. And so if we take that away, clean it up a bit, what we're looking at is what happened between 1989 to 1992. And it kind of went sideways for a bit and then had quite a decent rally. 1380 is the support there for the Australian dollar price. And then a little bit lower, back up at 920. So a bit sideways and a rally, and I would suggest to you that that's possibly what's going to happen in the short to medium term for the gold in Australian dollars. And just coming in to see actually what's happened there, and will there be gold on our Christmas tree? Who will win, Santa or Scrooge? And we've got a little bit of an expanding pattern going on there at the moment, but I like these bands, and they're the triggers. 1320 support there, and 1460, but it's actually gone through the 1430 overnight, so it's starting to move a little bit quicker than I thought it would. So there may be some promise coming through. But the momentum is really not supporting it doing a major breakthrough on the upside at this point. I think there could be a little bit more volatility as we head towards Christmas and the New Year. But certainly it's starting to look far more promising. But just remember your risk parameters. And we can get a bit excited here. If we go through there, it tends to suggest that it can test that recent high around the 1500 mark. But just remember, there's always the other side, and that's the risk. So just keep those levels in mind. And, you know, the golden question, are we there yet? And my answer to that is not quite yet, but it's certainly looking promising. But please, as we go into the next few weeks, keep those levels in mind, because I think that they will be very valuable. Okay, thank you for your time.